Alan Martin was the Wellington producer in charge of WNTV1, and he wanted to try to do something other than news. Well, I was news reading at the time, so he grabbed me and said, why don't we do some interviews? And we started this little interview series called Close Up. So I always tease Mark Sainsbury and say, well, you're making quite a good job of the second version, you know, not quite as good as the original master way back. And really that was just interviews with high-profile Kiwis. It was a great learning experience, as everything was in those days, you know. There we were in a converted radio station with cameras and camera people, cameramen always in those days, who really didn't quite know how it all worked, and nor did any of us. So people that I interviewed included the Commissioner of Police, whom people had heard about but had never actually face-to-face. The Commissioner of Inland Revenue, who was delighted to appear because it sort of brought to life this ogre, and he was an amiable fellow, and very distinguished. I mean, I remember Walter Nash, and of course, being a politician, revelled in the opportunity, but made good use of it. Sir Guy Poles, the first ombudsman. So it was that kind of order of interviewing, and nothing of any great, what's the word, exploratory or challenging value, but a wee bit of that, and enough to let them know that they were on public show, and to let us see that these were the people who ran our lives, and good experience for all of us. And I remember doing a story once about there was some hydroelectricity scheme. We looked for these kinds of things, you know, wonderful, colourful, and you could feel proud, the country growing ahead and like that. And we had to go and interview the engineer in charge. And so we set up, rather as you've done here, in his office, behind his Ministry of Works desk, with his in tray and pending and out tray and his blotter, and he sat there somewhat awkwardly and wasn't at all keen on doing it. And we said, no, don't worry. First time he'd ever been on television. He said, what do you want to know? And I said, well, we need just the background details to do it. And then I put the first question. He said, oh, hang on a minute, hang on. Wait, stop that thing. And he dialed head office on his phone. And he said, hey, they want to know about so-and-so. Can I tell them yeah, well, we intend to build this over the next 4.5 months and so on. What was it? Hey, they want to know. And, you know, we fell about with laughter, the poor bugger. It was great. I mean, I fronted up each night in the little studio, and Gordon Bick became a reporter, and Bob Hickson and various others, Relda Hamilton, all kinds of people jumped in and had a go. It was, what, 20 minutes long, I think, maybe half an hour. It's similar sort of pattern to our post-news things that we have now, Close Up and Campbell Live and the like. Same sort of pattern, fewer commercials, thank God, and maybe 4 stories and a studio interview, whatever. And you were the cheery, affable host. And everybody loved it. It was magic. You go around the streets and the next day, and hey, I saw so-and-so. You should get so-and-so on. She's a very good story to tell. And this was my city, Wellington, owning and delighting in and sharing in this thing which, of course, everybody watched, the only channel. And it was novel enough, and you got the neighbours round if you had the TV, but they didn't get, and so on. And I think it was, in a way, the best time imaginable for me, because, well, everybody knew who you were, and they wanted to host you and fake you, and, joke off the telly, and so on. I suppose the most severe thing was the difficulty of getting used to working in a police state, and coming all innocent from New Zealand, where you went about your business and everybody knew what you were doing. And I will always remember the time when we arrived. Alison had a good friend who'd been a journalist here, I think, in Waikato or something, not sure where. Anyway, now working in Cape Town. Yep, Cape Town. And so we went to see him on day 1. So here we are. We did our necessaries with the Ministry of Propaganda, or overseas guests, or whatever the hell they called it. And yeah, you will meet, and we'll help you to get whatever interviews you want, and have another glass of wine, and so on, you know, all that. And then we went to see Clive, and he said, oh, well, I think you should see, and he gave us a list of names of people who would provide the view of people who don't normally, and certainly wouldn't get any approval from their white government. And then off we went, and we followed, did our filming, and we lied and hid and connived and didn't let. But what we did do was keep in touch with this string of journalists, and they weren't all journalists. And each time we went, we had to identify ourselves and get, we are from an official, is that a state? Are you here with the blessing? Of course you're here with the blessing of the government, otherwise you wouldn't be in the country. And what kind of propaganda outfit are you? And we'd have to name names and And when we got to about the the 9th person in Port Elizabeth, she said, oh, well, you realize, of course, don't you, that Clive's an informer. So in other words, everybody you had interviewed could be suspect, and even more than that. I mean, could be prosecuted for something as bloody outrageous as treason, because for speaking to us and for saying whatever. So we went, oh my. And I remember that was the most kind of shocking moment, and something you would never dream of happening in a free society. And it was a real reinforcement that you were working with evil people. I shared an office with Pamela Meeking-Stewart. Pamela was casting this Etty Rout story, and she had Jane Waddell down to be Etty. And I kind of knew the story because we swapped things around a bit and people would chip in. And she was saying, no, I need, and she was bouncing a pencil on her, and she said, I need a kind of lanky, rather ineffectual, pommy sort of general. IJ, what are you doing next? So I was cast on the basis of, balding English accent, and I loved it. And I managed to get into all the leather the knee boots and all that sort of business, and the posh uniform, and be treated like a star, as I deserved to be, and so on. And that was a lot of fun. And I did 2 or 3 things like that. Where I went and was a judge as well. Parts where you just sit there and don't do much but look somber. Michael Scott Smith, one of my greatest friends, closest colleagues, the man who started Close to Home and started Crimewatch, and just a great committed producer and performer and writer himself. But anyway, he was the one who latched onto it and said, right, the Brits have got this Crimewatch thing that they do, and we got in touch with the police. Were they interested? Of course they were. This was all coming together when we were still, TVNZ, a public corporation. And so it fitted perfectly inside our kind of brief, which was to support the agencies of the country and provide entertainment. And Michael was very strong on it. He's a strong quality man. He said, no, we won't just show little bits of video footage. We will reenact, and we will have scriptwriters who will enter into what is known of the case, and we will hire actors, and we will bring what might have been the drama of the occasion, or what we imagined would have been the drama, to life on the screen. And that worked extraordinarily well. And people like Donna Mullane, who's now such an excellent producer and writer and so on, she cut her teeth on it, and we had Jane Gillespie, who had written for Coronation Street and the like. And so it was going to be a good show. But above all, I could preside, and bowl into the studio and wander around and instruct people and tell them what to do and so on. And I loved that. And it was live stuff. You knew that things were happening behind you, and you were actually with it, and there is no better telly. I mean, that all the nice feel of election night, something's happening out there, and we're telling you about it, and nobody's quite sure what it is. That's the joy of live telly. So I must say it was, a selfish delight to be again involved with that, and with people like Carol Hirschfeld and all the other, I think there were 3 in all, beautiful women alongside me, so good value. Must confess later on, when I heard of the appalling behaviour of some policemen during that period, I kind of thought, oh, I wish I'd known about that, and we could have used the programme to bring you jokers in. Anyway, that's all by the way. No, it was a very satisfying program to work on, and the last one that I had much to do with, really, because it was killed off when Richard Prebble effectively killed off public television, which was a great shame.